Hello, welcome to the Cinema Nine podcast. My name is Michael Govier, Travis Roy, Eric Branstrom, and we've got a special guest today. We're going to do The Family Man. Nope, just kidding. It's called The Weatherman. Don't get the two mixed up because I will for the rest of my life. 2005 film, Does It Hold Up, featuring Nicolas Cage. And speaking of Nicolas Cage, today's guest is a big fan of Nicolas Cage. In fact, he's such a fan, he's dedicated an entire podcast to him. The Cage Rage Podcast with Daryl Edge. Welcome to the show, Daryl. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday afternoon over here.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. Saturday evening over here, dreary outside, but lovely warm inside with such wonderful company. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome, man. I'm glad that we can make this continue the journey to Cage Nirvana in a different venue for you here.
It's always a pleasure. There's always so much room on the journey to true Cage Nirvana. Surprisingly, not a lot of people want to get on that train. I don't know why.
I am happily jumping onto that train. You could be the conductor, and I am on board.
Well, it's kind of less of a train and more of a red box these days, but that might be an American reference.
I love references.
We'll make some movie ones too.
Yeah.
Redbox. I think Redbox is universal, Eric.
Is it? All right.
I think so.
Beats the fuck out of me. Haven't used it in a decade.
They're in Singapore.
I thought it took like a pizza or something.
No. Like a box with movies in it at the grocery store. You can
Is
go
that like
rent a movie.
A direct-to-video comment? Is that what you're
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Right.
Well, wait, wasn't Nick Cage was in something recently?
Yeah, I saw Pig in theaters, and I was very pleased to.
Yeah.
Pig.
He still has his moments.
I don't get. I think all the Cage love has jumped the shark. It's definitely gone too far, in my opinion, Daryl.
Oh boy.
But no disrespect to you. I just think at a certain point he's become too trendy. I don't like trends. I want to be a contrarian. So now
Bill Murray situation.
Can't like him. Yeah, it's a Bill Murray situation.
This is why I needed you on here, Daryl.
I'm embarrassed for you, quite honestly.
Thank you. Can't wait to be on your podcast where it'll be a safe space for us.
It's a cage safe environment, but you know what? We're here to talk to the disbelievers as well, the naysayers.
That's right. We'll make some converts today.
So what is the one thing beyond Nick Cage? What defines your podcast? So if people never heard the Cage Rage podcast and they want to check it out, obviously it's about Nick Cage. You do a movie per show, right? With a featured guest?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's basically started from, where all podcasts start, the self-pervasive thought that we need more white people in the stratosphere to talk about movies, and I was like, I can add to that. I have a niche there. But also I find Nicolas Cage to be fascinating.
Yeah.
I think he's so interesting, and I've become that person in my friend group. Travis, I wonder if you're the same, where you've become the Nicolas Cage guy, and you get to that point where they're like, is this ironic? Is this a joke? Are you ill? Do you need help? Blink 3 times if you need me to intervene. But just looking into it, and this was over the course of lockdown last year when I had some free time, I was like, Nicolas Cage has so many films and so many I've never heard of, and I just thought it'd be a good idea just to get to the bottom of this, maybe learn a little bit more about the man, because everyone's got an opinion on him, sort of whether you like him or you hate him. I feel like everyone's seen a Nick Cage movie, or at least knows of a Nick Cage movie. He's the most bizarre A-lister out there, and I want to get to the bottom of this. So trying to go from Cage film 1 to the recent day, present day, and try and find out maybe a little bit more about him and all these things I'm learning in the meantime. And like these England-centric facts as well. He came over here a few years ago to try and find the Holy Grail. He has a castle here.
Yeah.
He turned on the Christmas lights at a celebration in a city called Bath about 10 years ago, which I thought was a hoax. But he's a huge Anglophile. A guest out of my podcast a while ago, a comedian called Andrew O'Neill, they were explaining that he turned up in like an occult bookstore and just bought a skull necklace and hundreds of pounds worth of like leather-bound spooky books.
I believe it.
And this is the thing about Nicolas Cage as well. Like, one of those things I could have said could have been a lie, but because it's Nicolas Cage, you're like, yeah, he probably did do that.
Also on your podcast, you refer to him as the Golden Hog of Hollywood. Yeah, where did this nickname come from? I'm picking up on it. I've started calling him that sometimes too, but I don't even know why. Just because I listen to your podcast.
It's something I'm trying to get out there to limited success. I'll be honest. I hope the answer is as good for you as it's been. I just made it up one day because I was like, you know what, we can talk about your cash cows. We can talk about like your bankable stars and whatever nicknames you want to give them. But in a similar vein, if you've seen It's Always Sunny, there's an episode where Dennis is like I am a god, I'm a golden god. I was like, well, I can't use golden god because it's taken, but I'm sure his penis is solid gold. The Golden Hog.
All right. I'm glad. I was hoping we would talk about his dick before we hit that 10-minute benchmark.
No. Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to have Daryl aboard here. He loves Nicolas Cage, and if that's his thing, I respect that. And it's also a really well done podcast. All jokes aside, I did check it out. It's very well organized. It's not shitty audio. It's rock solid. And this guy has something to offer. Daryl Edge has something to offer you. So please check out the Cage Rage podcast on all standard podcast platforms. Having said that, before we get to our main event, we're going to move into quarantine viewing picks. Now, usually we have a week in advance for our quarantine viewing picks. We did a show less than 48 hours ago. So this is a little bit of a different spin for us on this. But that doesn't mean we can't offer you guys some recommendations. So, Travis, take the lead on this. Where are you going with it?
Well, I watched one movie in the last 48 hours, and it was Weatherman this morning. But I have been watching, we typically talk about film on the Cinema 9 podcast, but I have been watching some TV shows of late, kind of getting back into TV, which I just really stopped watching TV for like a year or two. But, I'm always watching Kids in the Hall. That's always just kind of in the background, always watching Kids in the Hall. We've talked about the morning show enough on this show, but I'm still watching the morning show. And I do this thing like sometimes when a show that I like it wraps up and I don't want it to be over yet, and like I'll just like hold off on the last season or two. There's like 6 episodes of BoJack Horseman that I'm still just sitting on. Like someday I'll let this be over for me. So I started finally watching the last season of Schitt's Creek, which I started watching that when it came out, but was never like I gotta watch. I gotta subscribe to Pop or whatever the fuck. I was watched it in bits and pieces. But so now I'm finally accepting that it's over and watching that last season, and it's very good show, very emotional show for a show that starts off so cynical and bleak and ends up so heartwarming and wholesome. I really love it. And I guess I'll take this last opportunity to recommend a couple movies I've already recommended on the show before, but we haven't talked about much. One being the documentary Tread on Netflix about the guy in like early 2000s who destroyed a town in Colorado by armoring a a bulldozer. He turned a whole bulldozer into a tank and took out his town. That documentary deserves more eyes on it, as does the 2020 film Swallow, which I think was the best film of last year that people didn't really talk about. So,
is that like the Bush song? Swallow.
It's about a woman. You would like it, Mike. It's very much dealing with mental health issues. It's about a pregnant woman dealing with pica. I don't know how you pronounce this, but she's like got to eat stuff around her, and it's beautifully shot and just a really good character study piece of like someone who's going through turmoil and like emotional mental health trauma, and like just everyone around her failing her. It's really, really a fantastic movie. So check out Swallow if you haven't, and check out Tread also.
My favorite. Daryl, are you into mental health issues?
Yes, absolutely love them. Riddled with them, quite frankly.
Huh?
So yeah, I think it's anything we can help spread a positive message about mental health and stuff. That's always good. Had my own dealings with the dastardly D, which isn't me, by the way. So
not you. Okay.
That you know of.
The other dastardly.
Yeah. That's my kind of D, though, I'll tell you. All right. So, Daryl, I didn't even know if you're familiar with this segment. So are you getting the gist of how this works?
Yes.
It's complicated.
No, I was advised in advance to bring some recommendations.
Good job, Travis. Nice work. See, that's good show prep.
I've been prepped.
Daryl, quit barking.
Jesus,
There.
man.
My God.
Sorry, that's the.
He looks like a half Saddam Hussein, half dog from Hot Shots.
That's the British police at the door. It makes a difference. I usually get Stephen Merchant all the time.
That's better. I get the guy from Stained a lot, and it's not complimentary to be told these things.
I get Stephen Merchant. I get a Simon Pegg sometimes.
I don't see it.
I'm trying to think of any that aren't completely British centric.
Yeah.
Every Weasley you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson?
Especially Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I knew it.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Just trying to get my groceries and keep getting stopped by ladies who want a piece of the big gibbo.
The gibber. Oh my God.
Wow.
All right, Eric.
What the fuck?
Eric, what are you going to offer? I know you're really feeling the stress on this one. For less than 48 hours to come up with some type of recommendation. Can you?
Tonight, last night I watched HUD from 1963.
Mr. Newman. I've never seen it, but I hear great things.
With Paul Newman. Yeah, I haven't seen it in quite a while. And it actually paired really well with The Weatherman because the film is essentially about like indolence and misguided youth and the expectations of familiar relationships, which is like The Weatherman. It's really good, man. Like no one argues with their father in a movie like Paul Newman. So if you like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or like The Hustler and some of the early Newman stuff and you missed HUD, check it out because it's really spectacular.
All right. HUD, not the Hudsucker Proxy, by the way.
Different film.
Different film.
And for me, I was locked into season 2 of the morning show. I blew through the whole thing, so I finished that. It was just something I had to do. And boy, that show is really exhausting. I'm glad it's over in a way because
Wait, was the season finale yesterday for number 2?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta watch that. Okay.
Yeah, it's all out. It's all there. And I don't know if this is how the world works because I'm not in corporate America. I'm also not a major network TV star, which the morning show is based on a morning show on a major network, which is antiquated television that no longer exists, but it's still trying to hang on, which they also cover in the show. I appreciate. I just don't know if day to day are people really dealing with a lot of these issues like Me Too and the racism has always been racism. I'm talking about the hot button issues that are on Twitter and social media that we're trying to create social change for, which, George Floyd was an impetus for more of the movement in 2020. And the show is based in 2020. There's also the coronavirus that is mixed into the show. So it's like, it's also kind of a bummer. It's like, I don't want to see that. But I also wonder how much of a day-to-day operations, because I'm not out there engaging with people in the social world, is it really impacting individual conversations and the social groupings that they're in, because I haven't had a lot of that experience. And then again, I'm just a 41-year-old white guy living by himself in the middle of nowhere. So maybe I truly am out of touch. So,
maybe.
I'm willing to admit that freely. And I want people to know that I have no self-esteem and I don't have any self-respect. So don't try to come at me like I don't know stuff, because I'll just acquiesce and go into a hole. I'm fine with that. So.
How you feeling today? You doing all right?
Yeah, nice little Saturday. Okay.
Nice little Saturday.
Yeah, and then I watched one other movie. Maybe I mentioned it before, but I still like it. I'm going to push for it. Downsizing, Alexander Payne's movie, which was ripped on by a lot of people, featuring Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig. I think it's a good movie. It keeps getting better. I enjoy it more and more, and I still am going to recommend Downsizing from 2017, I think. So. All right, Daryl, we'll turn it over to you. Last but definitely not least, the most important person on the show today. Give us as many recommendations as you want.
I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if it wasn't at least another Nicolas Cage recommendation. Going to get bored of this real quick. I mean, I suppose one of the reasons of watching Weatherman today is because this is a film I find, and we'll get into it, I find it to be tremendously underrated in the Cage pantheon of his filmography. So I suppose two of the films that of Cage's that I find to be very underrated. One is Matchstick Men from 2003. There's a lot. I don't feel people are still talking about this enough, even though it's Ridley Scott attached to this. And another, and stop me if you can see where I'm going here, is Joe from 2013, which to this day I am still. Have a daily scream that this was snubbed through all the awards in 2013. This deserves a lot more. And I think between these three films as well, and as ridiculous as this may sound, these are, for me at least, all films which are in the category of reminders that Nicolas Cage can act, despite what some people may think. I think Joe is just a wonderful, a quieter Cage, more meditative Cage. Matchstick Men, we touched on sort of mental illness. He plays a character with OCD. One I think he plays would have been very easy just to take it over the top. I think he plays it with a sort of modicum of care and sort of compassion with all of that as well. So those would be the two films that I would, have a recommend for you. Outside of that, if you want me to throw it around, comedy series, go and watch Review. That was really good. I enjoyed that with Andy Daly, which I think is another one. I don't know if many people in America even saw it, because it was hardly watched over here. But
Not familiar.
He plays a professional critic who reviews real life scenarios. Like he reviews racism. He tries out racism for a while to give it a rating between 1 and 5.
Wow.
I know they're getting kicked in the nuts. He reviews that.
Wow.
Like getting divorced as well. So I thoroughly recommend. I think there was only 3 seasons, but I'd thoroughly recommend that.
I'm sold. That's funny. I got a question for you. There's one other actor that you talk about on the Cage Rage podcast with regularity, who I agree is the other greatest working living actor, which is Willem Dafoe. So got a favorite Dafoe film or two you could throw at us?
Defoe. Well, I actually just watched Dog Eat Dog only yesterday for the first time. So that one, I feel I wanted to love it. I didn't hate it. I feel like it might need another watch to sort of settle me on it, because I'm not a huge Paul Schrader fan.
Oh, we're big Schrader fans here.
Wow.
I think he's all style over substance. I think he's trash. I think he's trash.
Wow.
Oh man!
Did you see First Reformed?
Oh boy, you gotta see First Reformed. He's got. What's that?
I said what I said. If there's a film you think that like this is the film, I suppose in a reverse Cage way, if there's a film that you gentlemen would suggest to say this is the one to turn you on Schrader,
it's First
Reformed.
Reformed.
I will. It's First Reformed.
Absolutely.
I will take a chance on First Reformed.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dog Eat Dog is one of the most brutal films I've ever watched in my life, especially that opening. So, like, if that's not what Schrader's always about. But you said what you said. We'll respect that.
I said what I said.
I love it. I love your passion. I love that you're not afraid to be yourself. That's my kind of guy.
We're talking about Paul Schrader on this show again. It's been like at least 3 episodes.
Paul Schrader. We love Paul Schrader on the show, and First Reformed is very important to us. And Daryl, if you didn't know, we all got a copy of First Reformed for Christmas last year from Travis as a running joke, but not that big of a joke, because now we always have a copy to offer. So
it's true,
right?
So if you want us to send you a DVD, I could loan you mine. It's Blu-ray. I don't know if you watch DVDs, because I don't. In fact, I had to go out of my way to watch that DVD, because I have not put a DVD in a player in 3.5, 4 years at least.
It's one of those rare DVD Blu-rays.
I think you offer like in your 3 picks, Daryl. I mean, you've nailed the versatility of Nick Cage in all 3 of these. And for me, the 2 highlights personality wise for these is his ability to be super confident in a role like in Matchstick Men or like as Castor Troy, and be the complete polar opposite, which is a total lack of confidence. That's not easy to do, and he's the master at that particular quality.
Or sometimes, like in Weatherman, there's like this weird mix of both. He's like self-effacing and hates himself, but it like presents this kind of confident mask to the world in a lot of ways, which is probably kind of a tightrope for an actor, I think. Not that I've ever been one or anything.
And I think he's a great actor. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he is a very talented individual. So it's just the trend of Nick Cage.
He's right over your left shoulder, so he can hear everything you're saying.
Hey, there he is.
Oh,
Other
you want to say that to my face?
Don't forget that this is a podcast, so you can follow us and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That's really the... Hey, is there another way to rate a podcast? Have you figured it out, Daryl? Because it really still is like the only monopolized version or way to get the job done, right?
A warm hug to say well done, that you've done all of this, and then it's all going to be worth it at the end when you're at the pearly gates and going to be like, oh Christ, another one.
Another podcaster. Is he white with facial hair?
You know he is.
But right though, there's no other vessel or method to rate a podcast. Is there? I don't think there is another way. We still haven't found it. Have you?
I think it's just your usual streaming, your Apples, your pod chasers, your big air quote engagements on the socials. What does that mean?
Yeah, but Apple owns. It bothers me that Apple has a monopoly on it. Like they're at least here in the States, I've not figured out another way. Like Spotify is a huge podcast platform. There's no way to rate any podcast on it. You think you'd want to have multiple sources. It seems odd to me.
It seems like a failure on Spotify's part, though. Like, why
I don't know.
they put that feature in there, you know?
It's very
I'm not
weird
going to blame Apple for this one.
Yeah, okay, fine. Well, either way, 5-star reviews help the show grow and expand our horizons to other people like Daryl. Same thing goes for Daryl's podcast, Cage Rage Podcast. Give it a 5-star review and tell him that Cinema 9 sent you, or that you found him on Cinema 9 and you fell in love with him and you'd like to meet him in a dark alley after hours for a simple rendezvous. And if
a warm
he's
hug
down, then he'll show up. He seems like an open-minded guy to me, so we'll see what happens. Either way, yeah, look at that. Yeah.
You'd be surprised at what I wouldn't say no to.
Got that down.
right.
Slam dunk NBA references. Yay.
Hey, good job.
The NBA? Are we talking basketball?
No.
I don't know any players except for Bugs Bunny and Space Jam.
Slam dunk either.
Only Mike knows.
I will say this. I've never seen any of the Space Jams, and I have no plan to ever see any of the Space Jams.
I watched the first one thinking, I'll watch this since I've never seen it before, since the new one's coming out. And I watched the first one. I'm like, that sucks. I'm not going to watch the second one. Why would I do that?
I know. What nostalgia? Who is nostalgic for this shit? I don't know who it is, but either way.
Intellectual Property, the movie.
Hey, that's what Hollywood's becoming, sadly, in a lot of ways. But there's still hope. And that's why we do the show. No emails today because we just did a show less than 48 hours ago. You can email us, cinema9pod@protonmail.com. All right, let's get to the main event. It's called
The Weather.
Hold up. No. I was on to something.
Oh, I thought you were going to say The Family Man again.
It's called. I was close to saying The Family Man again. That's true. No, but I actually was going to say this is our signature segment. Does it hold up or not? We focus in on a particular movie every show. And this movie was selected by Daryl Edge himself. And I'm wondering.
Tartar sauce.
I just want to stick my head right in there. Tartar sauce.
Man, I'd like to put my face in there.
Yeah.
Tartar sauce. That was definitely going to be a highlight for the movie for me, which we'll get to. But yes, a 2005 film called The Weatherman, starring Nicolas Cage, Michael Caine, Hope Davis. That was a terrible Michael Caine. I know that. And I'm not.
I thought you were slurring your speech.
You smelling oranges?
I will say I love trying to do the Michael Caine. I can't do it, but I was inspired by Michael Winterbottom's The Trip with Coogan and Rob Brydon, and they did it so well. It just, I fell in love with that. I was a big fan of that. So, Daryl, why don't you open the floor for us? Why did you pick this movie? Just tell us why you picked this film. And also tell us, do you remember the first time you ever saw it?
It was the podcast last year. It was the first time I saw it. So it was, I guess, coming up in the chronology of things. So I think with any Cage film that I've not seen before, which, as it turned out, was quite a lot of them, this was a first-time watch. I always try to go into these Cage films with an open mind. I'll know, the tagline, the synopsis of the film. So a lot of his 2000 output at this point in his chronology had been still pretty solid for the most part. This is coming off Matchstick Man, National Treasure, Lord of War, adaptation before that. So he still had a fairly good streak going. The 2010s, that's a different story altogether. But you've obviously got Nicolas Cage here. You've got Michael Caine. I love act check with Nicolas Cage.
Was that your Michael Caine?
Yeah, I slipped a quick one in there for you. Just a blink and you'll miss it. I think, I'm sure we'll go into it. My only issue with Michael Caine in this is that accent is inexcusable.
What is going on with that thing?
Boy.
This
Sorry,
is the
you're
thing.
right.
It's
Yeah,
like
okay. Yeah.
not that
We'll get there.
You can't have an American and a British parent, but just cast Michael Caine for Michael Caine. Don't make him actually act. He's past that.
Wait.
God damn
Come
it.
on. You didn't see
Daryl.
his tender meltdown in The Dark Knight? The Dark Knight Rises?
I failed you.
You're tired it is. They're melting, Mr. White.
Okay. So yes, that's interesting. I actually love. You mentioned Lord of War real quick. I just love that movie. That might be my favorite Nicolas Cage movie. Side note.
Wow.
Seriously. All right, let's go to Travis. When was the first time you saw this film? Take us back in time because you love this movie.
I definitely liked this movie when it came out. Like I saw it. I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I saw it like as soon as it was available to rent. And I was like, "Whoa, this is a great film." It was. I immediately compared it to Matchstick Men because like I saw, they both came out a couple years apart from one another, and like it seemed like there's a kind of a connectivity between these films in terms of some themes and that kind of stuff, and his performance as well to a degree. And I really liked it, and I watched it again maybe a year or two later, and I'm like, yeah, this is still really good. Then I watched it again like another couple years later, and went, maybe this isn't as good as I remembered, and then I didn't watch it again until this morning. So it's a good move for this podcast. And of course it features the great Nicolas Cage, which always makes me happy.
Nicolas Cage! Eric Brandstrom, take us back in time. Give us that heartfelt moment the first time you watched The Weatherman.
Okay, it's about to get tender in here. It was 2005. I was in the theater on opening night. I joke earlier, but I've always been a big Cage fan, and I was a Gore Verbinski fan because he's coming off the ring, and I was like, this guy's solid. So I was there opening night, laughing my ass off in theaters, and for years afterwards, I would watch this easily once a year. For many years, it was my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, but it has been maybe a good 7 or 8 years since I've taken another look at it.
So I mistakenly thought I hadn't seen this movie, and as soon as I fired it up, I was instantly reminded that I absolutely had seen this movie. Again, the confusion with The Family Man continues. The Family Man came out in 2000.
I love The Family Man.
I do too.
I actually like The Family Man a little bit. I admit that. It's just funny to make fun of The Weatherman and The Family Man. Two movies 5 years apart with the word man in it. That's it. That's not a lot of connections otherwise. Although there is a family involved in both of these films. So,
well,
but I remember this was part of my Blockbuster Online days when I was blowing through movies. I had this one, and I remember being like, it didn't strike me as much. That's why I didn't remember it either, because it just didn't impact me back then. But that doesn't mean it's not a worthy film. It just, that's how it was. I did not rewatch it since those days. All right, so let's move on to what the critics say and what the people say. IMDb score. Did anyone not look up the IMDb score on this movie?
I don't know what it is.
Me neither.
All right, I'm gonna guess pretty high, but not upper echelon high. I'm gonna give it a 6.9. I'm gonna guess it's a 6.9.
6.5.
6.5. Daryl, did you give us a shot? Did you see it?
Yeah, I was going to say 6.9 as well, but to be contrarian, I'm going to go 7.0 to edge you out a bit.
I appreciate that.
That's a seasoned pro.
Damn.
That's a seasoned podcaster, folks, right there. The answer is ding, ding, ding. 6.5 on the nose for Eric Brandstrom. Congratulations. Which is a decent film, not a legendary film. Again, like the film we just did 48 hours ago. I think it was a 6.7, 6.8.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
It's solid. 6.5 is decent. It's not terrible. If you go below 6, you're in trouble. That's all I'll say about that. As far as Rotten Tomatoes, Rotten Tomatoes loves Nicolas Cage, as far as I know. Every movie that's ever been reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes that is a Nicolas Cage film, premium stuff.
Except for Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, shit. Okay. Unfortunately, it's this movie, too. It's a 59%, which is a splat from the critics. And no support from the audience, a 56. So nobody, that's a dumped over bucket of popcorn, in case you're wondering.
I could see this being a somewhat divisive film. I mean, it's a dramedy, you know. So there's some great, like, hilarious moments, but there's some heavy shit in here that I could see some people not really being able to enjoy, I guess, especially people who are mental midgets, you know. Sorry to use that word. I don't use that word usually, but you know,
You're fired.
The wrinkle brain folk.
You're fired.
Dude, it comes out when these like downtrodden protagonist black comedies are popular, like Sideways. So I'm kind of surprised that more people weren't feeling the vibe of this narrative.
What about the critics? We got a Destin Thompson check-in in 2005. I think we can count on a Destin Thompson check-in.
I'm excited about that. Daryl, on the show, we do the critics reviews, and Destin Thompson is our absolute true love. He's a legend in that sphere.
9 out of 10 times, I agree with him.
Also, Bill Goody Koontz is also very important to us. It's a real person. He's a real reviewer from.
It's not a candy bar. It's the guy's name.
He's a real guy from Arizona who reviews movies, and ever since we found him, we've fallen in love with him, Daryl. And I hope you will too. I hope he review this movie just for you.
I've always been a big fan of sort of the late great Roger Ebert, because he's always been a big Cage protector and advocate. So he's an honorary golden hogger in my neck of the podcasting woods.
Big Paul Schrader fan too, Daryl. Come on now.
Of course, yes. We always give Ebert his due if he's still alive to review, and he was still alive for this one, so I'm sure we'll get to him. All right, Peter Travers of Rolling Stone. You've heard of Rolling Stone, Daryl, I'm sure. In the face of a character no one cares about, can audiences be faulted for asking, why should we?
Yikes, Peter.
It's a harsh review from
Get the fuck out of here, Peter.
Rolling Stone. Yeah, Peter Travers. I mean, he's well known, but he doesn't know everything, right, guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Just give me a list of names and I'll do the rest.
We got Peter Travers at the top.
Yeah, that's an easy target.
Done.
You're not a
Murder him.
Done.
How about let's try a new one. Moira McDonald from the Seattle Times. She's a top critic, and she said, "It's all believable enough, but it never sings." I didn't know it was supposed to sing.
Sings.
Well, I mean, he speaks a lyric or two from Like a Rock. Does that count?
Dude, I got major flashbacks. That fucking song. I mean, how long was that commercial? A commercial? 15 years?
10, 15 years.
It's an all-time record for like a repeat of a commercial that was in mainstream and re-upped to continually in use. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's
ruined a great song.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard that. Daryl, did you ever hear this? It was a Chevrolet commercial, Like a Rock, Bob Seger song was used.
I thought it was Ford. 15 years.
See, exactly. Who cares? You don't even. It's some car company.
It didn't even work on you.
Chevrolet not massive over here, to my knowledge.
Oh.
You don't demand to drive trucks like 5 times taller than you are over there
in the Red Rocks.
No, we're just too busy just telling the poor that they're the problem to be driving around.
You could do both. We guarantee it.
Drive a truck and insult the poor.
It's American way.
That's really funny, Daryl.
That sounds delicious. I'd love that.
By the way, we just have to know, Bob Seger fan? Are you a Bob Seger fan? He's a treasure here.
I know the name. I wish I knew more of the man.
Like a Rock, and that's about it.
Well, I'm actually jealous. I'm envious of you. You have a whole Bob Seger experience ahead of you. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. If you like music, if you like quality, well-written original music, you'll love Bob Seger.
9 to 9.
All right.
Speaking of Bob Seger, Roger Ebert says, this film has moments of uncommon observation and touching insight. 3.5 out of 4 stars. So there you go.
My boy.
Okay.
There you go.
The Cage Protector legacy lives on, right?
Honorary golden hogger for a reason, baby.
And Destin Thompson. Destin Thompson. Here we go. The legend himself. On October 27th, 2005, Destin Thompson said this. What makes this so emotionally compelling is the way Dave scrambles from this deep veil of cluelessness to something approaching moral maturity.
That's it. Okay. Always brief, usually insightful. Sometimes not, but usually.
Pretty deep.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So what do we think of that? Do we believe
I agree.
you agree?
I do.
Daryl?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. It's, a man spiraling, trying to find his place in the world. And, gender aside, I think a lot of us can agree with that journey and find some common ground in that journey and find our roles on this hurtling orb that we call a planet. So I'm down with that. I'm on board with that.
All right.
Is Dave a good parent?
I think he wants to be. I think he tries to be, and I think that makes a good parent. I mean, I've never been one. I don't plan on being one, but generally, I think that, like, if you don't give a fuck if you're doing a good job, you're gonna do a really bad job, and pretty much everyone's gonna fuck up their kid. But at least he tries. He's trying. And he recognizes the absences that he's taken in his life, that he's prioritized his career, and I think that that's got a lot to do with what's happening with his crisis in this movie. So he's realizing that, like, he's actually, like, been really good at his job. Excuse me. And, like, bad at his life, and now he's gonna, like, take this next step up in his job, but he's like, I gotta fucking sort my life out at least a little bit before I make this step with my career. And it's mostly focused on his kids, not enough on his son, but still.
Yeah, his poor son just getting groomed for the majority of the film.
Gil Bellows, too creepy in this.
A young Nicholas Hoult as well, playing the son in one of those "oh, it's you" moments.
Yeah.
He can do an American accent, it turns out.
Nicholas Hoult can.
Right.
Michael Caine, unforgivable. It really is.
Why even pretend?
Why bother?
Why?
That's
pretend?
funny that you guys, I didn't catch this at all. I mean, I watched the movie and it didn't fast forward through any of it, actually, which is shocking. And I just didn't. I just thought Michael Caine was being himself. I didn't see it enough. I'd have to go back and listen to it, I guess. But I'm not saying you guys are wrong. I just didn't even bother to be like, oh, that's garbage.
I think he gets a free pass because he's Michael Caine, but it's him just being clueless and all going, son, what's a camel toe? What's a blow job? What's a big gulp?
Her colleagues are calling her a camel toe.
Yeah,
colleagues.
We talk about his fucking character in this, like, who is this guy?
This sucking and chucking and fucking and jacking off, son?
Yeah, he's saying dildo on the phone to his ex-wife when he shows up. That doesn't help. But what is this? I think that he is a terrible father. I mean, forget Dave. Michael Caine is a shitty ass father who makes his son feel like shit for most of the movie after his attempts to show him his Hello America letter on the seat. He sits on it, ignores it. And then at the very end, he got the Like a Rock reference, was 5 seconds of a speech with the power went out at his living funeral. The fuck?
I gotta say, like, yeah, the majority of what this Robert character does is just told in such this condescending tone. Like, if you stop and look at, like, his first sequence, after like 2 hours of them like visiting the hospital, only when they're about to depart does he even ask how things are going. So you're going to spend 2 hours with your son and not even act like you are concerned at all about his life. It's just.
Well, I think that it's critical to the character of Dave Spritz because, I mean, like, he's a guy who needs a lot of validation and hasn't gotten a ton of guidance. So, like, it makes sense that he's got this successful father who has largely ignored him because now he's going to be successful and largely ignore his kids, but he's trying to do better. And I think that his father, Robert, is self-absorbed, but also, like, fairly well-intentioned. Like, he goes to his son's wife's house to try and be like, we need to talk about what your daughter's wearing. Like, I'm concerned for her. Like, he is well-intentioned generally throughout the film, I think, but he's certainly a flawed dude, which, makes sense because Dave's a flawed character. So we're seeing a lot of where his story comes from.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it is largely it's a father-son film dynamic, and you've got, I think both of them have been ignorant in different ways, and there's and obviously you see this is where sort of Cage gets it from. He gets it straight from Caine, the apple not falling far from the tree.
I learned by watching you.
It's exactly it. Like, they're both on these careers, and I think they both see that each other has put their careers before their family lives. And anytime you get this sort of I don't know, this air of sentimentality that maybe there is like some love behind there, it's just like another barbed line that comes in and they just can't quite get past it. And it's I think like it takes that living funeral, living wake. Which is that a thing that happens in America? Because I don't think that's a thing here.
No.
Very interesting.
Kind
Terrifying,
of
if anything.
I've heard of the concept once, but it's not a common thing, and as far as I know.
We're indulgent, but we're not that self-indulgent. I mean,
It was the 2000s. It was a pretty selfish decade.
One of the things I really love, though, about the dynamic between the characters is that this consistent inability of Dave to like compete the most menial of tasks for his father. Like he asks for a coffee and he brings him a wild cherry soda. He asks for a paper and he brings him a coffee. Like it's just like, and it's always like these events that are really kind of out of his control. Like he's like trying to live his life, but also please his father. But like, he just always ends up giving him just a little.
He doesn't listen though. He's selfish and he doesn't listen because he tells him, "Hey, son." After he could have learned a lesson from the first one with the coffee.
Yeah.
Carry more than a freaking $1 in your wallet. You make $200. You go out of your way to tell us you make $240,000 a year as a weatherman.
Yeah.
You can have more than a single dollar bill, but he doesn't listen. Just like with the tartar sauce. He listens, but he doesn't listen because his mind just goes completely out the window by the time he gets there, and then he lies about it. This guy is a piece of shit.
And then he thinks later, if only I remember the tartar sauce. Like, no, dude, if only you hadn't lied.
Exactly. That's the problem here. And he's filled with so many examples of his awfulness. They're not like super obvious, like in a way Donald Trump is just a supreme scumbag. They are just these little things that happen here, happen there. These attempts where he tries to do good and then it all goes out the window. The archery thing with his daughter, and he's trying to get his daughter to finish the skating race. She tears her ACL and MCL. I'm like, I thought it was going to be like, she would be pissed. Like, I can't believe he made me finish this. No, she tears her fucking knee up. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's bad.
Yeah. And who is it for? It's definitely not for her confidence. It's clearly for him. I was surprised on this most recent viewing how much less sympathy I have for Dave. Like the multiple times I used to watch this, I was like, oh, this guy's like me. Like he's just misunderstood. And so what if he's, not that smart? He's just very lazy in his approach to life. He says he works 2 hours a day and he makes a fortune. And yet how does he doesn't spend his time with any self-improvement at all. He just tries to live his life the way he is and use that as an excuse for all of these situations.
Well, I will say he does focus it on the archery himself.
Something that brings him joy.
I don't know if that's self-improvement, but he dedicates himself to that.
It's like meditation. It's what gets him out of this rut in the long run.
Yeah.
Is it a crime to just hold a bow in tow, ready to release, and point it at someone? Is that a crime in itself, or is that just a threat?
Dude, I lived in Chicago for many years, and I hung out in Lincoln Park quite a bit. You're not firing arrows into a tree in the middle of this huge park that's populated.
What about can you just walk down the streets of New York City on a regular basis with it like on your back and like ready to go?
You can if you want to point out, like if you want to really hammer the nail on the head about the symbolism of him finally being armed with the tools to get through life. But other than that, no, probably not legal.
What do you think, Daryl? Is he a piece of shit?
I think you're putting forward a compelling argument that he might be. I think I can see it from two sides. I think he's maybe lived in a bubble for a while. He's sort of compartmentalized. He's pushed these life problems to the back. He's like, like he's not really a meteorologist. He's a celebrity in his own mind. So I think all of these things are second fiddle, like the relationship with his father, his soon-to-be divorced ex-wife, his daughter, and trying to make all these adjustments. I think it's only sort of through the film, after so many times of having a McNugget or a milkshake thrown at him. It's kind of interesting because I think like with his family, like with the public perception, there's people who love him, maybe the audience as well, like Nicolas Cage, people who love him and people who hate him. There's that there's the couple who are watching him, it's like, oh, I really like him, and there's the other one who's like, I hate his face. He's got an asshole face.
Frosty taking fuck happy son.
It's almost like a meta reading on Nicolas Cage in some ways, this movie. It's how I sort of read it as well.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. Just for the record, you don't know me that well, but there's a lot of fast food references in this film.
More than I think I've ever seen.
Hands down, this is the Hall of Fame movie. You got Arby's, Wendy's. There might have been another one thrown in there officially, but you got
Burger
Frosty
King,
Burger King? Oh,
Wendy's,
okay.
yeah. Golden
Rogers
Massive.
Roasters.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers Roasters.
Rogers Roasters.
Yeah, fuck it. I mean, there's like pretty much every Taco Bell's in there. Pretty much every fast food
That's right.
gets referenced except for I think Chick-fil-A, which is fine.
Fuck, they must have filled the whole budget off that shit, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. He has to explain to his dad what a Frosty is. That is just clearly product placement.
And him telling him, I've got lymphoma while the fucking spoon is still
spoon.
stuck in his fucking cup. So funny.
Yeah, that was McDonald's warm apple pie. They did mention McDonald's, the hot apple pie. So.
And it's really, really rewarding when he chases the dude down and like smears it in his face. It's like, fuck yeah, finally. Like,
I gotta see my family, you fuck. That was pretty funny.
That was pretty good. But I think that I agree. This is partly like a meditation on celebrity and like the pratfalls of that good and some of the good that comes with it too. It's like I get rewarded for very little, and the shakes are a reaction to that, right? But I also think that there's a lot about this big deal is made of the movie at the end of what an American accomplishment it is to make $1 million plus a year. And but like we already know that like his job does not fulfill him, that it makes him feel empty and kind of worthless in a lot of ways, but he enjoys the perks that come with it. But by the end of the movie, he's like leaned into that. And I think there's a lot of this movie that's kind of looking at like, the ways that we try to find purpose in our careers and how most of us, regardless of the amount of money that we make, often spend a great deal of time doing shit that we don't like or care about. And the stuff that we really do like and care about doesn't get tended to with the attention to detail that we honestly think it deserves, but we're distracted with these fucking careers. So I think that on one hand, this movie works like as a meta thing on Cage or celebrity, but also I think that it's pretty relatable to like Joe Everyman or whatever, because I think everyone could feel like, yeah, I'm not fulfilled by my work. And I also have a hard time feeling validated by my father. Most people say that, right? Not just me.
And I mean, also, I like the way the arc isn't that he changes. I think the whole point is that you don't really have to change. You should be comfortable with yourself and be able to improve your life. But the film kind of affirms adequacy and mediocrity in a positive way, which is kind of a bizarre conceit, but it works for the most part.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to mention real quick is, yes, they threw food at him. There's also instances where he's just in situations, standing in line at the DMV, and people just say, hello, they're not being rude. They just want to recognize who he is. And
You're on TV, bro.
Yeah. And he doesn't want anything to do with that. But by the end of the movie, when he's got the big time job, they show an example of him finally accepting that and be like, all right, I asked for an autograph. He gave it to the guy, shit like that.
I also really like the giant SpongeBob balloon because I think there's like some meaning to this. It's a giant, huge, filling the space of the city, iconic character that's completely empty and temporary, right? And and I think that's like I think that's kind of what he's achieving, and feels like, okay, like I've celebrated him on this float. His family's not with him, but there is something going on here where it's not so much like better yourself as it is accept yourself in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I really like the way that they show that too, because at the end of the movie, he's talking about all these people that he could have been, like these great character traits that he wanted to have, and this person who he wanted to be. And we see these people disappear and go into doors and just disappear from the screen until all that's left is just him and the person that he actually is. And he leans into it. And I do think that that's a good message, ultimately.
Yes. Daryl, did you think that people rated this movie as average or below average on Rotten Tomatoes, the people, not the critics, because it made them feel uncomfortable about their own lives? Kind of what Travis was alluding to with this. This isn't every person film in a way, but it could be. I don't want to think about this shit. It's going to fuck me up.
Well, unfortunately, cinema in front of and behind the camera, full of cowards.
The world is full of cowards then.
I think it could well be, I suppose, when you sort of dig deeper into this film, it is one that's sort of reflective. And I think, as we've been saying here, it's about sort of finding your own way in the world. And I think one of the takeaways, and I think that I think some of these character alludes to, it's that just because you're an adult, life doesn't automatically become easy. You don't just get to make it easy. I think it's the analogy of him with the bow as well. Life, as with archery, as with other things, it's something you've got to practice at, and it gets better. There is no open manual for this crazy thing that we called life. So it's getting to a place of comfortability, I suppose. And I think, I've been this person before. I've, complained about my lot. It's like, why is this person getting this opportunity? Why am I sort of here? But again, this is kind of the thing, I don't just get afforded an opportunity because I'm sat in a room complaining and just getting angry about it. I need to go and get a bow and arrow and just go into the streets and just look fucking cool. To finally get that respect, which is probably the message here. Just change your lifestyle and your outfit and look fucking rad. That'd be dope as shit. But I think there's that message there that's no matter how good people have it, we don't always know the story of people as well. Sympathy with the rich, yay. But yeah, it's I think it's a life message with everyone is the same.
That reminds me when he looks at that house and says, that should be a happy family in there. Happy people should live in that house, when he's sitting in his car looking at the house.
And that is one of the messages of the movie, is that wealth won't buy that for you, even though we are supposed to be like sympathizing with this person and like his movement up in the world is more visibility and more money, two things that really hadn't been buying him happiness so far.
Right. Exactly.
But again, like I think it's a complicated film.
One of the messages is sacrifice, and it's explicitly said that adult life should not be easy. Life is hard, and the hard thing to do, the hard thing to do is usually the right thing to do. So in terms of this movie, especially in this latest viewing, I'm thinking to myself, well, Jesus, does David really make any sacrifices in the movie? He has this cushy job basically handed to him. He shows up to the interview half asleep. So how hard does he have to try to attain this enlightenment, such as it is at the end of the movie? Like, what is the challenge? Like, what does he have to overcome?
And hungover. Yeah, he gets plowed the night before his big interview. Well, I think that's that's another part of the movie, is that like, and sadly, this is the part that I think is relatable. I mean, I've always come from lower middle class, but I'm still from the country that I'm in, I'm far more privileged than most people in the world. And I think that's partly what the movie is about, is like wrestling with that privilege. And like, he comes from a rich, famous father. He falls into this job where he works 2 hours a day and got a degree in communications, probably just a bachelor's.
The wind, it's the wind, man. Nobody can predict the wind.
So like, he's got this whole life handed to him, and he hasn't earned any of it. And the stuff that like he can like affect and influence, he makes demonstrably worse over and over again with like every choice that he makes, because he just has to fucking be the kind of person to go in the bathroom and look at the fucking trust note immediately. He's one of these fucking, he's not a great guy.
I mean, that's the whole thing. It's easy to want things to get better, but David doesn't really see that he needs to be better, and that will fix everything. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's an American accomplishment.
There are no cats in America.
In the streets,
I keep hearing the word America, and that keeps coming to mind. I'm sorry. Okay, so we got a little bit more time here before we get to the final verdict. Well, Daryl, what is some other stuff you want to bring up here? I mean, you are a special guest. You own this show. Bring it. Give it to us.
And you'll take it, good sir.
I will.
Something I noticed, I think, very quickly, and this is basically from watching a chronology of Cage films up until this point and beyond. And as you may know, if you've watched any number of Cage films, is that one of the wild cards in any Cage film is his hair.
Here we go.
Now, for my money, his hair looks real good in this.
The best fake hair.
I would say some of it's some of the best Cage hair that he's had in cinema. Maybe before, during, since. And I sort of joke about it on my podcast, but semi-seriously, once I've caught up with all the Cage films, that I might sit down and commit to the
Honeymoon in Vegas?
Oh,
What about the dead koala bear he has on his head and Peggy Sue got married?
Well, I think one day I'm going to have to sit down and have like a definitive ranking from best to worst or worst to best hair.
That'd be
Call
awesome.
it the Nicolas Cage official hairies. There's no official name for it yet. But, you know, there's been some terrible hairs. There's been his sort of Lego hair that dominated a lot of the mid-2010s. You know, let's not talk about his hair in Next Door Bangkok Dangerous.
Or Drive Dangerous. Or Drive Angry. I mean, that's also some classic hair.
Outcast.
But here, Outcast as well, great shout. But here, very solid, normal young person hair.
And motivated. Like, it makes sense for someone in his career to like have a really good rug.
And as he's saying right at the start, I think he's in the sink and he splashes his face with water. I think he's like, that was refreshing. I'm refreshed. I'm refreshing.
I was really hoping you do your impersonation.
And so, you know what, Nicolas Cage, I'm refreshed as well because that hair's so nice. So that up there is great. I think the other main thing is that there was a series of films in a row, especially his earliest movies in the 80s, where he was mostly cast as like young heartthrob in these more artistic and dramatic movies and stuff. And he was always laying with women, always raw dogging. And he raw dogs in this whilst dressed as Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, which is great.
Which I have to dub this the raw dogging of Abraham Lincoln. I don't know how this rewrites American history for anyone.
For the better.
He looked like him. I was kind of surprised. It wasn't like, he pulled it off.
And Daryl, I believe you're 30, right? You're 30. You just turned 30, I believe you said recently.
Yes.
On your show. Well,
yes.
Happy belated birthday to that. The three of us are all 41, which is, I believe, what Nick Cage was when he made this film. And that just is so fucking weird to me. Man. Like to be like the same age as this character and this actor.
And to make so much less money.
Oh my god.
I make his Purina promotion money right now. Literally.
I wish I made that.
I think it's like life, like the weatherman. You just got to be born into the right family, haven't you?
It's true.
I wanted to bring up the parenting of the two different kids here. I noticed that he's focusing on it, and he admits it to his son, Mike, at the time when Mike comes home and he's sitting in the car outside the house saying, I still love you. I'm just focusing in on her right now because she needs it, but I still love you. I'm not trying to ignore you, which I give him credit for saying that he at least tries to tell his son that this is not a total disrespect or ignoring you entirely. But it's like he picked the wrong kid. Like he probably needed to be paid attention to a lot more than she did, right?
I mean, he's literally like got this substitute father figure who's making dinner for him, buying him clothes, giving him a camera when he's like trying to earn one from his dad. Prepping to sexually abuse him. It's like, and that's why, because he's been absent. So like, that's the only reason he's going to like turn to this guy. And while we're on Gil Bellows and how creepy it is, how fucking awesome is it? I don't know the kid's name. I can't remember the character's name, but the performance from Nicholas Holt's friend in the mall with just like totally suspicious face, like who the fuck is this guy? The whole time he's talking to him, he's just like immediately like just like gets like the wrong vibe from the students. Like fuck no, like this guy's not right.
But he's not a good friend. Like you shouldn't leave. You should be like, dude, we should go.
yeah, that's true.
He said he's like, I'm out of here.
I've seen this so many times, and again, it took till this morning. I think this subplot is a bit too much, maybe too, I don't want to say real, but it just seems a little bit too icky for such like a silly, like dour black comedy. That might be me, but like this situation is really serious. This beatdown just seems like a task by Dave, and there doesn't seem like it's a made out to be more big of a deal than it is, and it's kind of casually put into this film, and it's kind of gross.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, they react. I mean, he's in New York when he finds out, and then his ex-wife, or they're not divorced, they're separated, they're not divorced officially.
I don't know.
Is it clear?
She's dating Grandma from Rounders.
Right, Michael Rispoli.
Grandma, that's funny. But yes, he finds out while he's on the road, so he doesn't come home because it's a big weekend to try to get this big job. So I understand that he can't come back, but it's made serious. And when he comes back and he slaps Grandma on the face, which is just so dumb, because he says the only time you should slap someone in the face like that is if you're a nobleman from the 18th century or in a
Your father
duel.
thinking you're a silly fuck.
Yes, that's what would make your father think you're a silly fuck. But he's very upset by it, and they all take it seriously. It's like it's on lockdown. So I don't think it's totally dismissed. But if the separate point about it being not an ideal fit for the film, I think you could have
coasted. I think you could have coasted with the drug use issue at school and not had to.
It's marijuana. I mean,
well, I mean, back then, and for a high schooler, it's like an issue that could deserve attention from a father. But for me to like want to laugh at the pedophile being like, "Oh fuck, sweaters," I just didn't sit well with me.
I don't know that we're supposed to laugh exactly, and also, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that like fathers just let their sons, their teenage sons, smoke weed. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
I'm saying that for the record.
Okay, I'm with you. But I'm just saying that the stakes aren't very high there. What we get with this character is that, like, hey, if you are not like a good father, if you are absent, people will chicken hawk and hone in on your children. And I also really like the way that like Mike's sexuality is dealt with in this film. It's like a non-issue. Like he may be gay, he may not be gay, but his father's just like, don't put yourself in adult situations until you're an adult. Like, you know, there's no real judgment, there's no nothing. It's just like this is the problem isn't anything that you've done, really. It's like there's a dude, and just be careful with who you surround yourself with.
What do you think, Daryl?
Yeah, I think I would agree with all of what's been said. I mean, I remember the first time I watched it, the very dark B story. I think it was very jarring the first time, because you know, I think there's a level of sort of, it's the grim realities of life in some aspects to this movie, and you know, his attention's elsewhere and trying to win back his old partner and trying to, I guess, sort of navigate the relationship with his father, trying to have a conversation about camel toes with his daughter, and then whilst all this is going on, it's, you know, his son is being groomed and stuff. So again, like, I don't know if that's just some kind of I guess, for lack of a better term, an extreme side view of like, when all your attention's this way, not all your attention's on the son, because as he says, it's like, my attention's not really on you right now, but the son's like, yeah, it's cool, that's fine, you know, don't worry about it, it's genuinely okay. And then it culminates in the sort of beatdown on the step. It's just kind of like, a lot happened in this B story, but you just kind of like, you kind of distance yourself from it because it's so like icky, as we've said, compared to the rest of the film. And then the beating happens, but I guess maybe it's intentional, because I suppose, like, you know, like Cage is supposed to have this, I guess, almost a catharsis in the beating of this sort of pedophile, but then you kind of don't really get it, and I don't think that he has it either. It's just kind of like, well, and I don't even know if it's misplaced anger. It's just almost as if it's performative, like he had to beat him up to make a statement, to try and prove his worth as a father. But you're there kind of like, yes, I guess.
I mean, no one's unhappy to see the pedophile get beat down and get the camera thrown in his face. I mean, it's at least gratifying in that sense.
Yeah, it was great, but he's cracking pie jokes like before and after it. He makes it seem like he's got to pick up milk on the way home from work. It's like,
he's super distracted and self-absorbed, and that doesn't change. You're right.
Yeah, he also read the trust note, which I've loved that scene, because I really thought it was just going to be blown off as not a big deal. Each person was supposed to write down something that was very secretive, and they're never supposed to open it in this trust exercise. And he does it right away in the bathroom.
DJ's
and then he brings it up to her. Not only does he read it, then he brings it up to her afterwards. And
his ego.
She calls him a champion asshole. I love that. That's a great line.
Did anyone pause it and see how bad his breaking point script really was? I read a little bit of it. I mean, could have been worse.
The dialogue that he was reciting was terrible.
I don't know. I was kind of into it. It was not a science fiction.
it
One
literally
character was a
sounds like-
scientist.
It literally sounds like the type of movie that he would be in nowadays.
That's good. Yeah, that's funny.
We should throw some more love at Gore Verbinski. I think that he's a really fucking capable director. I don't like all of his movies. Like I don't like any of the fucking pirate shit. I hate the pirate shit.
Yep.
I thought that Cure for Wellness was dull, but looked fucking fantastic. I've always been a big Mouse Hunt fan. I think that
Rango.
I like Rango, and I think that this is maybe his best film that I've watched. I mean, like it's the most there's a lot of creativity happening here, but it's not overdone. There's a lot more restraint here than I think he typically shows. The sequences, I mean, like I think that my favorite part of the movie easily is the sequence that you already referenced, Daryl, where like all of the slow motion fast food is like hitting him in the face. The nuggets are like, oh, like all that stuff. But it's all shot so beautifully. And the movie starts with that ice, and it like tilts up towards the city. And I mean, how many movies have you seen that began with like a shot of the water, then a pan up to the city that's going to take place in? I mean, that's so fucking cliche. But this, like, I don't know what it's not just the ice. Like Verbinski just has a really, really solid grasp of filmmaking, and I'm surprised he doesn't do more.
Love that. That's one of my favorite parts. Like any good director is going to try to find an image that's going to tell you about the story, and if you're really lucky, the character, and you get this stasis between liquid and solid, which is exactly where he is. He's stuck in this freeze, and he's either going to thaw or he's going to completely freeze over.
No, I think that's exactly what's happening. Then it cuts to his apartment, which is like gorgeous, has this amazing view, but it's so sterile and empty, and it just feels like this place that he's stuck in.
Mm-hmm. Verbinski also made his made bones. He cut his chops. What is the phrase? He made hay.
Cut his teeth.
Yeah. How do you when you're getting into something?
Going for here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm mixing up a lot of.
Started.
Well, he came up doing Bad Religion and No Effects music videos.
True.
So that's cool.
Oh,
I didn't know that. I'm just seeing that now.
That's
He did 21st Century Digital Boy, Stranger Than Fiction, American Jesus, some of the biggest
That's
ones.
the one. American Jesus is a great video.
Yeah, that's very cool. So good for him. I didn't know that. That probably gives him a little bit of credibility with me. We all grew up on punk rock around here, Daryl, just for the record. SoCal punk, though, not the East Coast dirt punk. Everybody's different, but generally speaking. So anyways, society has issues, and we're trying to get through it the best we can. Daryl, any last calls before we close it out here, buddy? I'm going to give it to you.
I think just leading off on the Gore Verbinski line, I think just looking at the filmography, just fascinating that he had Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, then did The Weatherman, and then two more Pirates of the Caribbean films, which is just and just outstanding to look at. And he's like, you know what? I've had my small Nick Cage fancies and thrills. Let's get back to the big nautical adventures. And then has disappeared for 5 years.
He's been pretty quiet. Just too bad.
Surviving on that pirate money, I think.
Yeah, right.
He's set for life.
Yeah. Well, all right then. If that's it, we've covered a lot of detail here on The Weatherman, 2005 film, directed by Gore Verbinski. It's time to find out, does this movie hold up or not? We will. Do we make the guest go last or first? I never remember.
Dealer's choice. When would you want to start, Daryl, or do you want to hold off?
I'll hold off and get a read of the room.
Ooh, okay, perfect. Hey, Eric, you want to go first?
I've always liked the film because of the humor involved. I got some narrative issues these days, being the same age as Dave Spritz, which is really fucking weird, like you said. But the movie still says a lot for me, and it's not just the relatability; it's the symbolism, it's the metaphors. Like I love all the fast food metaphors, the need to have to provide emotional nourishment to the people around you. In the expectations of your family and your own fallibility. You're never really in control of anything, and that you just have to better yourself. You cannot get complacent when you have a wife and kids and a job. You just can't, because that shit is going to bite you in the ass. The movie does it in a funny way, and it reminds me that real success comes from positive change, and not a lot of movies that are this funny with this great caliber of acting and technical prowess do that. So I still think it holds up. I love the film.
All right.
Oh, okay. I'll go next. Watching this movie was a real slog for me. In fact, talking about it with you guys has been way more enjoyable, and I'm actually surprised how enthused I am by the conversation of it, because watching it was just like, Jesus, this is not enjoyable. It has these really, really powerful and emotive moments and deep, thought-provoking instances where made me think about my own life, and it's not cheesy at all, which I always approve of. It's got a lot of things that I would like a film to have, but actually watching this movie, I was like, oh, I never want to go back and watch this again. That was my initial response when the movie was over. But for some reason now we're talking about it and all the concepts within the film, and I'm really into it, and I'm laughing now. I'm really confused because I just watched the movie last night. It's not like I watched it a week ago or 5 years ago. I'm not really sure it holds up or not. And I'm going to say, as a film, it doesn't. I'm going to say it doesn't hold up. I do think it's thought-provoking and worth a watch for sure, but I think as an actual piece of entertainment, it drags too much ass with this weird Michael Caine character, and the scenes with his daughter, which are like almost unbearable for me to watch for some reason. They're just brutal, and it's not. I don't need to have a piece of popcorn trash. We've all watched popcorn trash. It doesn't have to always be that way, but I don't know. If it was reworked in some way, I bet there's a better movie in there. For me, it doesn't hold up. So.
All right.
Huh.
We'll let you go last, Daryl. We'll let you round us out. I like I said earlier, like I watched the film originally and thought it was pretty great, and then was kind of like, maybe I've built this up too much in my head. Maybe it's not as good as I thought. So I didn't watch it for a long time until this morning. It was not a slog for me at all. I felt complete opposite. I didn't take breaks. I didn't fuck around with my phone. I was wholly absorbed from the moment the movie started till it ended. I was very emotionally involved. I had laughed really hard multiple times, and I even teared up at one point at the scene when Michael Caine and Nicolas Cage, which, by the way, I love the shot of their two faces kind of reflected. The superimposed shot in the car window is what a great last shot for those two characters interacting together. But when like he's like giving him when Robert is giving his son advice and like trying to understand like a rock and all that shit, it's all just like kind of like not going that great. And then then he finds out that they've like punched out Gil Bellows, and he tells him good job, and like just hear him, like the look on Spritz's face, and like that is just like. He said, "Good job." Finally, it must mean so much to him, Like so, I was fully engaged. Like you, I mean, the scenes with the daughter are rough. There's a lot of stuff, really intimate stuff about a really young girl's body, and like a non-conventional body, and to the point that like I did pause the movie at one point because I was concerned about this girl, and I totally stalked her on Google, like, what is she up to now? Is she okay? And she seems just fine. She's not acting anymore, but she does seem like she's perfectly fine from her Instagram feed. So I stalked her. Sorry about that. But part of me was like, this is a kind of role that could fuck someone up, I think, in some ways. Like, this is a 12-year-old girl doing this role could fuck a person up. But she does a great job. Nicholas Hoult does a great job. I mean, Hope Davis. I mean, like, this whole cast brings it. Gore Verbinski does a really smash up job. I think that the imagery, the symbolism, the metaphors going on here, the fact that you can chuckle and think about life. I think this is probably my best watch of the film. I think it absolutely holds up, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Wow,
Daryl.
there it is.
Yeah.
How about
Close
that?
us out.
It's up to you,
Do the right
Daryl. This
thing.
is your call.
We need you.
I know, time to go hard or go home. I think for me, this one On merit for me, I think this one does hold up. I think with a lot of sort of the messages and the themes that it talks about, sort of is the family, the parent-child dynamic, the finding your place in the world, the trying to battle through a job that may not be fulfilling, even if it sort of pays really well. I think there's a lot of ideas here that are relevant, that would have been relevant before, relevant when it came out, relevant now, will be relevant in 20 years from now. It's often cringy. We're talking about there's very close-up shots of a child's camel toe. Let's not shy away from that. That's what's in the film. And I shared some similar thoughts to yourself, Travis, when it was like, does she still act after this? Because this is a role that, for better or worse, can define you. And it's sort of like, I hope her parents were there on set days and looked through the script as well, and she was well cared for during this movie. But as you said, she seems to be fine, so that's the grand thing there. And it's sort of the messages about sort of having to endure in life, and that no one, except for the 1%, to quote Bernie Sanders, you don't just get to have it good. You've got to work at it. But if this film's message is anything to go by, as with David here and his father, what I took away from this is, once your father dies, your life will get better. Yes, wrap it up. Get us out of here.
Ending dark.
Sing that klaxon out, son. Kobe. But that aside, you might have a good relationship with your father, and I hope your father never dies. I hope he lives forever. But yeah, life, it's difficult. No one gets to have it easy just because they said so. So, whether you're a chicken nugget or you're a Caesar salad, you've got to find your own nourishment.
You must chuck some things.
Dab.
Oh, Nelly! Wow,
There it is.
All right.
Wow.
What a
That's
ride.
very tender, very heartfelt. That's beautiful. Thank you, Daryl.
Well spake.
Last thought on the meta analysis. This is probably even more of a Cage meta film, because I forgot that he did change his name. He really did. So
I meant to mention
Spritz
that. Yeah.
and the
The Cage
part
and
of the
Spritz.
cap.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that he wants to take it back.
Yeah, being part of the famous family of Hollywood. So there it is. We've all spoken. I guess I was the only dissenter.
Yes.
So the movie holds up. Congratulations, Daryl. You're on the right side of history on this one. And it's been wonderful having you on the show. Before we say farewell to you, we got to get Travis's announcement for what will be next on the show.
Before I announce what we'll be doing next on our show, I also want to say, again, check out the Cage Rage podcast and look for me to be on there soon. I'm happy that Daryl has invited me on, and I'm going to be looking at with him the film Arsenal, which I talked about a few times on this podcast when I watched it last year, because I fucking love it for all of its warty glory. So I'm looking forward to talking about this shit film, which is really good and terrible, Arsenal. So keep an eye out for that on the Cage Rage podcast. And as far as what we'll be doing after our brief Thanksgiving hiatus, I'm gonna do what we've been doing lately, guys. I'm gonna give you an offer. Mike and Eric, you have a choice between a film from 1993 or a film from 2015. Very different films.
I say 93. Michael?
Sure. Let's wait. What did we just do? 2005? Yeah, we go back to 93.
All right. We're gonna do 1993's Fire in the Sky.
Oh my God! Wow, Travis Walton story.
D.B. Sweeney.
Holy shit, man!
D.B. Sweeney.
Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky. I don't think we've done a UFO picture.
We dabble with aliens. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna do the Rocketeer, but all right, that's fine.
Fire in the Sky. You can pick the Rocketeer when it's your turn.
Wow! You ever seen Fire in the Sky, Daryl?
Not Fire in the Sky, but I've seen Nicolas Cage's Firebirds. I don't know if they're any way similar.
I don't think so.
It's funny because Travis, Daryl kind of looks like the real young Travis Walton. Google it, you'll get a good chuckle. Yeah. So it's Stephen Merchant and Travis Walton. Yeah.
And there you go.
Fascinating. That's some great news.
Now he's going to Google
Oh,
the guy, but this guy better be really fucking good looking, right?
Wow. Well, we want to pay
He's bloody not.
Oh,
Fuck.
we want to pay tribute to Daryl Edge. Daryl Edge
Yeah,
from
that
the
was
Cage
fun.
Rage podcast. Please follow, connect with the Cage Rage pod. He's doing quality, upstanding work. Even if you're not like a huge Nick Cage fan, it's a fascinating movie podcast. If you like movies,
funny.
they cover all kinds of stuff, and he's very clever. You can follow him on Twitter if you would like, at @Cage_podcast. That's a good place to start. Daryl, where else can people find you? Share all the particulars you want people to know as we say goodbye.
Sure. Well, Twitter, as you said, at @Cage_podcast. I'm on Instagram as well, at Cage Rage Pod. All the usual places where you get your podcasts. You know the ones out there. Your Apples and your Podchasers and your Spotifys. I'll be on there. And outside of that, best place to get me, probably on Twitter, because I'm usually on that when I should be working. But don't tell my employer.
They'll never know. Don't worry. Nobody listens to this show, so you're fine. Don't worry. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Daryl. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Really
you so
appreciate it.
much. Pleasure.
Travis, you did a
Privilege.
great job bagging this guest. Well done. Smart move. I'm glad we got to do this. And don't forget to watch Travis on the Cage Rage podcast coming up very soon. Until then, Eric Branstrom, Daryl Edge, Travis Roy, Michael Govier. We're off until the following Thursday after Thanksgiving. This was the Thursday episode for the coming week. So we'll see you on December, whatever day that is.
First, I think.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
I got hit with a pop.